something we'll do, but I think we need to go forward with that. However, that's not long-range planning even under, that's project planning. But it is something that a lot of people keep bringing up. Let's just move forward with that. However, I agree with Jim. I mean, we need to step back, say, where are we headed? What does Pat want to do with the fitness center? What are people asking him? Do we need to put another roof on it? In tennis, what are we going to do? Can we build an observation deck above a new tennis building that we would put here? These are all things that are valid, open questions. And that takes a long-range planning. And let's just do both. Let's focus on where we're headed and do this food thing that everybody keeps asking.
And I don't have any problem with any of that. And I'm not faulting anyone. I think everyone understands that. But
No, you were asking for direction.
I'm
Just one board
looking
member.
for direction because I think we need a broader based input beyond just a single project.
Right.
And if we're going to do that, I am willing to run those processes. We can determine how many focus groups we want. If we could get it done, I think, by the annual meeting, so that you have some sort of consensus of thinking. And we also could identify land planners. I don't think it's just you do one and then you have to do the other. You could do a lot of things parallel.
Right.
But if the board said, "Nah, we don't want to do this," I got a lot of other things I can do in my time.
Well, and I want to acknowledge you accepted a big task, and we should support you as well as that committee. And it's a two-way street, but I mean, we need to figure out the appropriate mechanism for gathering data. I hasten to use the word survey. I'm certainly not going to be part of it. I mean, I only have a couple more months on the board here, but you know, we do need some data collection that could provide the right type of information, and we should look at all kinds of means of gathering that data.
Well, with the board's permission, I will put together a possible course that we could, a path to run on, if you please. I'll get that out very shortly. If you say okay, then I would like to discuss it with the Planning Advisory Council. I think taking 16 of those people, put them in a room for 3 hours, run the process, they can provide a lot of information because they represent a lot of different communities here. And we could look at committees, you know, the tennis, bocce, pickleball, whatever, we could do something like that. But anyway, I'll lay out a path.
Thank
And if you're in agreement with it, we'll proceed. If not, I'm okay. Doesn't make any difference. And then meanwhile, I agree they should pursue the project that they are wrapped around and want to bring to closure. And thirdly, I will look for the overall strategic, long-range planning facilitator kind of company who in the end might say, if you want food, you went about it the all wrong way. You should have done this. So let's see what happens.
And my only interim comment, Jeff, is on the moving the truck into the court. We just power washed all the papers. I would hate to have whatever.
I'm not going to interfere with the project.
These are things that are just part of the discussion.
It's a good idea.
Absolutely no decisions have been made. I'm not on the committee.
Right.
I'm just reporting what I saw as a spectator. And I know Margie Mintz is on the committee and she's raising her hand and I think she wants to say something.
Yeah.
Yes or no?
Not before me.
Yeah, Jerry wants to speak too. Jerry.
Jerry.
Yes. I had nothing to do yesterday, so I attended that meeting as well. Okay. Because the long-range planning committee for the last 4 years, if it was in any sort of basis, was project-oriented. There hasn't been a long-range plan of any type made that goes past yesterday or tomorrow. I take the opposite approach. We just cured, to some degree, our major problem, and that is parking. We put new parking spaces in, reoriented the parking facility. We put in the pickleball courts, which we know we're going to add a demand on the parking. My first requirement and request would be that starting December 1, we go out and get an accurate account of how many spaces are used between 6 and 1 o'clock every half hour. Easily done. If we had the cameras up, we could do it electronically. Now you would have to do it manually. This way, find out, do we need more parking spaces during these hours, during the season, or do we now have enough? Okay, that's the first question. Did we accomplish our goal, or are we still short 10, 15 spaces, whatever, during prime times? Okay. The second issue, okay, is taking a look at what's going on in the general community. In the general community, and I'm speaking about Naples proper, and in some cases a little beyond Naples proper. If you take a look, take as an example, and I did this yesterday, the golf clubs, the golf courses. They have all in the last 4 years, and some of them currently, expanded, modified all of their product. Pelican Bay, Quail West, the Vineyards, I can name time after time, okay? And they all did that. Granted, most of them were in existence longer than we were, but what they're looking at is what the new market, okay, requires. They had great facilities. You know, somebody said, gee, they tore down Pelican Bay. Yeah, they tore it down because they made an assessment that said the new, younger, okay, purchasers want different things. So they put in more extensive fitness, okay, spas, whatever else that they thought was necessary to meet the demand of the future. None of these, okay, facilities that have been created are cheap. They're all into the millions of dollars, okay? And the reason they did that is they wanted to get a leg up on the future so they can compete. What we have to decide is, are we going to compete, okay, to some degree, or are we so well off here that if somebody takes the decision to move here, they'll be satisfied with what we have and how we have it. So that if they're, you know, don't have enough parking spaces here, I could live with that because I can walk to Mercado, okay, location, etc. So I think that's the first step. Did we rationalize what we thought about in creating, okay, enough parking? I don't know. I would venture to say that we probably still won't have enough parking during certain periods of time. But I don't know, and I think we have to establish that, because if you want to go out and hire a land planner,
Go ahead, ask you the first question. Go ahead.
okay, and you tell him, look, you know, we can't supply, you know, enough parking spaces. Our people are coming down. We got 400 people doing this, 300 there. You know, every time you add something, if you wanted to change one of these rooms to another spin cycle, okay, you say, gee, that's not bad, we could do that. But the trouble is, every time you add another bike, you add another parking space outside. Even though you're in the same building, you beat the law, but you don't beat the convenience.
Jerry, do me a favor, I'm not sure where you're headed. Are you in favor of what Jim's saying? That
I'm
double
in favor,
level,
but I want to see that the board makes a motion to go ahead and proceed and get an analysis of our parking. That's number one.
I would like to use the next 4 months through March
Yeah.
at least, and measure how many days we're at capacity, and get facts, just like we're measuring data and metrics. at the
Somebody
fitness
could
center
walk through the parking
and
lot
at
and
the
count the
court
number of
center.
empty spaces, it's simple. Okay, if we had cameras up,
Yeah,
you could do it
Walk and do that.
electronically.
yeah, well, we-
Okay?
Okay, so we've already agreed we're gonna do that.
Okay, the second part is, until we get an establishment that, I think we ought to put a moratorium on the things that you want to do. Why do you want to go out and waste their time, which is valuable? Okay, because you want to put a bus out here or a truck out here, okay? I told them yesterday, you got to check because you got to be so many feet from the building with propane. Okay, easily said, easily done, no. All right, so why let them spin their wheels doing that when they could really work toward the long plan, and then they could accumulate the information that they want to pass on to a planner. Okay. The planner's gonna ask you guys is, what's your budget? How much do you wanna improve your facility by? You send a survey out and everybody will tell you, well, gee, I don't wanna spend $8 a month more for Comcast, for crying out here. You know, that's something the board, maybe the long-range plan, maybe another subcommittee of some sort, but land planner comes in and says, what do you guys want to do? If they asked me, I would say, well, the only thing I want you to do is utilize the space a lot better so that I can have X parking spaces, and I don't want this building touched except to raise the roof to add more space to it. That would be my criteria, but then I don't know what I'm doing. Okay? So, but I think to ask people to go out and make an effort without a direction doesn't make any sense. We have to prove what we have, prove, okay, to ourselves that we're satisfied to date, and then create what we would like to have as an optimum, okay, or what we would accept, okay, as a reasonable improvement.
So are you suggesting putting that committee on hiatus until we gather 3
No,
months
I
together?
think you need to get them to help you get some additional information, okay? What would you say, okay, do we need more space within this building for, Patrick, could you use another 800 feet?
Sure.
Excuse me?
Yes.
Yes, okay. If you ask the ladies that play cards, they would want more space because there's too much noise from the people with the clackers. We can't play bridge in the same room with Mahjong. So those are the kind of things. If you wanted to do something to augment the space, and somebody said move the tennis over, if you've got additional parking availability, you can modify the building and put the tennis office over here. There's a lot of things you can do, but you have to give some sort of semblance, okay, to what your objective is.
Okay, may I make a brief comment?
Okay. Go ahead, Speaker.
Okay, Jeff. Yeah. You have 2 men on the planning committee that have the expertise, they say, to at least get some information on whether or not it's feasible, forget the truck for a minute, whether or not it's feasible to move forward to consider some kind of a quote-unquote cafe. Let them do it. They want to do it. They know everything is, nothing has been confirmed. They know it's all preliminary. And at some point, in order to make a decision with regard to a cafe or no cafe, you're going to need information. They want to do it. Let them do it. Get the information.
Thank you.
With regard to a land planner, here's my thought. And I think everybody has to understand that if you're going to bring in a land planner, what do you think a land planner is going to do? Land planner is going to come in and he's going to say, well, we have a little over 5 acres. Your 5 acres is full. Do you want me to tear down the building? Do you want me to put up a parking garage? Do you want to change everything? That's what a land planner is going to do. And Jerry and Jim have indicated that certain things will likely change with a land planner. If you want to bring them in, spend the money, then do it. But I think ultimately, nothing is going to happen with a land planner because what the land planner is going to suggest, in my opinion, well, I really don't know what the land planner is going to suggest, but if you want to do it and you want to spend the money, do it. But in the meantime, let them explore the feasibility of a restaurant. I don't want to say a restaurant, I don't know what it is, a snack shop, food service.
I don't think we're holding back on that.
Okay.
Any other board questions? Resident comments have been waiting? We'll go start here and work our way around.
Well, you know, this process of waiting and not asking questions on certain issues is very difficult because you're testing my memory and I have to start writing these things down. But the first question has to do with Comcast. When they do their pulling out of wires or whatever, do we know what that project is going to look like in each neighborhood? And if there's any damage anticipated, are they taking those big green boxes out of our, I know Mike's not here, but who's gonna know what, we've been talking about this turnover or cutover for a year and a half now.
Yeah.
But does anyone know what that means?
Yeah.
You do? Oh, good.
Most of the wiring, the micro, okay, has been all the way, obviously, not only to the pedestals,
Right.
but it's to the buildings. It's not to some of the single family, obviously, but I believe the 200 plus are all single family, am I not?
Yeah,
Or
they're
not,
No,
we have some condos involved?
Most of them.
Okay, but be what it may, all of that wiring, okay, is at least to the pedestal. So when they convert, they're gonna be doing that at the main frame. All right, from where the signal is gonna emulate.
So they're gonna come in and take the old pedestals out?
No, those pedestals are already wired. They already got the microfiber in there.
Oh, they use the old.
They use the old pedestal, they went,
To hook up the.
they went through and put some new conduit in some cases, et cetera. Okay? In our neighborhood, they used all the same pedestals, didn't put any new ones in. Okay? And utilized everything to get across the streets and everything
That was
else.
one question. The other question had to do with your valuation of the building. Jerry did a very good evaluation, came up with $4 million. Your expert came up with $3 million for insurance. So, and I don't know anything about insurance. I hate insurance. But how can the valuation from the expert tell us, for insurance purposes, only valued it at 3.1, and Jerry did a quick and dirty estimate and came out with 4.1?
Well, two things really quick, and Ken, maybe you can add, but the building without content was 3.1, with content was like 3.6, 3.7, very close to Jerry's 4.
Oh, so he was including.
No.
The difference is, for insurance, they're saying,
Doesn't all go down or something?
is, first of all, nothing's gonna happen from here down. What they're saying is you don't really lose everything.
That's correct, you never lose the base.
So they don't want to insure any more than they have to, but you can insure above the number, it's just finding a number,
Oh,
but
okay.
we just want to make sure that the probabilities are such that, for example, adding $1 million gets us to a point where we could have one hell of a hurricane and still end up with most of the building being here.
That's fine.
So-
It's a simple question, I just don't know, and I don't know if that's the right answer or whatever, okay. The other question, when Comcast made the deal with us two years ago, there was a $300-something thousand allowance given to us, which you spread over 3 years. And did you apply that, and that was that number on the bottom of that spreadsheet, did you apply that against the Comcast fee, or did you apply that against the operating expenses of the foundation?
Comcast fee. It was always used to give the owners a build-up to the full cost. So
Okay.
which is why when they credited us the 72,000, we then said, great, we've collected the money, let's only put 30,000 of that bonus in this year. That gives us the ability to spread the other for 2 years.
All right, so in 2 years, not only will the contract for Comcast go up the 2 to 3% per the contract, but it'll also go up with that drop-off of 100 and whatever.
Which I've said is about $5 a month.
Just ask me a question.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Well, we've got other hands. Why don't we give?
He's not done.
I know, but we've got other people that want to ask questions.
Okay, let's
Let's come back.
Come back to you. I'm
I wrote
just
it down
assuming this
here.
might have
Okay,
something to
thank you
do.
very much.
No, you can.
Let them go over there.
Hi, I'm Paige Giannetti at Egrets, and what I'm hearing is there's agreement for the long-range planning committee to continue on the food initiative as what I would call more of a project type thing, which I think people agree to. then based on my involvement in strategic planning in the past, I would think it would be the board's responsibility or appointing a committee to do the long-range planning. And then I would see this land person, whatever their title is, as a tool or a resource of executing against the long-range plan. But it doesn't seem to me that a land person should be the driver of the long-range plan. They're part of the tool to execute whatever the long-range plan ends up being. And that long-range plan would certainly have the input of the needs of the community. So maybe the multi-president approach is a great way to
Is
go.
there a mission statement for the long-range planning?
Well, it'd be very easy. If the long-range committee has assembled enough information that said we have to provide an additional 1,500 square foot to the building, okay? In order to accommodate additional needs, changes in what we should provide our residents, et cetera. 1,500 square feet, okay, that's easy enough. What does that mean? The first thing it means is we've got to accommodate that many more parking spaces. So how do we, do that? From our standpoint right now, we know what that is, and that means structured parking, because we have no more ground. So it works backwards, and that's where the land planner will come in. You say to them, look, we got 125 spaces now, you got to put in, okay, the equivalent of 175 to 200 spaces.
And it would be driven by the needs that feed into
Right.
the long-range plan. So in my opinion, the biggest thing is, does the board see itself as responsible for the long-range plan? Or does the board want to appoint a team to do the long-range plan?
We have a long-range planning committee that Marge might want to comment on.
I do, because what we thought yesterday is, we are a committee of people that are very project-oriented. None of us feel we have the expertise, really, for long-range planning. So maybe our role is the project-oriented. And I'm sorry Mark's not here, because he's really the chairman. But none of us feel that we really are equipped to be a true long-range planning committee. And if I'm understanding right, you're saying, yes, go ahead and pursue and get the information for food service.
Correct. And I would just add that the reason we need to have a hired gun, so to speak, is that we're all volunteers. And it's wonderful that people give of their time for the benefit of the community. But that time only goes so far, and you need to have staff, you need to have other professionals assisting. So
I
I
guess.
guess 22.
I don't, now I should turn to Jim before, and I know Steve keeps saying something. Give me a second. I don't see a land planner as the person we need right away. We need someone to help us do long-range planning, and I think if you go to any of the golf clubs or any of the other places, the land planner comes after there's a concept of a plan. But I thought you were talking about getting a long-range plan person to help us coalesce the ideas of the TAC, the ideas of the fitness committee, get the owners, help us structure that so that we're doing long-range planning. Then when we get to a point where we think we understand where people would like us to go and where inputs from the community are and where the world's going, like we did with pickleball, then we have to get a land planner to help us decide what, if anything, we can actually do given the constraints. But I wouldn't see the first step hiring a land
No,
planner.
you won't. Look, if I was going to come in here and said somebody was going to offer me Pelican Marsh to purchase, it's a total rental project, okay? What would I do? I'd have a marketing analysis done. What do the renters use? What do they want? How do I stay competitive for the rent that I've got to make? Okay, so if you don't have the capability within the framework of the residents themselves, maybe we ought to take a look at getting somebody to come in here from a marketing standpoint and say, here's what you guys should do to retain the availability of your product to be on the upper tier as opposed to mediocre, to maintain the value of your real estate, your assets. Here's what other people are doing to encourage people to buy, okay? That's a marketeer, okay? So maybe if you don't have the ability here with individuals who have time or effort or ability, maybe you get somebody in here, okay, that can say, hey, you know, you got a good product, but it's, look, everybody's redating, okay, their kitchen. It's only 12 years old there. Everybody's putting new kitchens in, okay? It's outdated. God forbid, if you don't have granite in your house, you're in another world.
It's outdated.
Granite's outdated.
Granite's outdated? There I
But
go.
wait a minute, I mean, Steve's had his hand up since.
Can't win. Right.
Just a comment and a couple of questions. In terms of this long-range planning question, I agree that you need a planner. I mean, you guys are the planners, right? I mean, you planned the pickleball installation, and you planned the fact that you assessed the parking, you decided there was adequate parking to put those courts in. You went ahead and did it. You didn't feel the need to get anybody to advise you on this, right? So, I mean, the fact is that at this stage of the game, maybe a plan would have been good before that happened, but it's already done. So now we have to say, okay, moving forward, what kind of plan does this community really need? Land use is only one part of it. And I think that the assertion that a land use planner is not necessary ever is an absurdity, because you're eventually going to have to look at that very limited plot of real estate.
We didn't say that. We said that he's not your first person.
Well, I heard you say that.
No, you
Somebody
didn't.
else
You
said
heard
that.
me say that he shouldn't come in until after we do the general concept, to say, now, what can we
Right,
do?
and I agree with you. I think you're on the right track here.
Oh, I'm sorry, I misunderstood you.
No, wait, Steve, I said it.
Right.
And I said it because, based on my experience, I know what a land planner is gonna do. And there is no room in this 5 acres unless you really start moving things around and taking things down. And if that's what the community ultimately wants, because it will be a community decision, this board will not be able to make that decision because of the amount of money involved. And if the community wants to go that route, not with regard to just hiring a land planner, but doing what the land planner may suggest, then I think you're hitting your head against the wall. I mean, you want to try.
No, I understand it, and I think the plan is a good thing. I think we all agree on that. I got a couple of questions. I don't want to take up too much time. So, in terms of the reserve, what I've heard from you, Ken, recently is that we are building up our reserves, which I think is laudable. My question to you is, what are we building up our reserves from? What happened to the reserves? And when did it happen? To the point where we are in a position where we're bringing in operating income and shuttling it over to reserves to kind of build it up to a balance where this third-party evaluator says, yeah, you guys have enough reserves now. Where did the reserves go some budgets ago?
Right here.
Well, first of all, we spent $750,000 on this building over the last couple of years to bring it up to where it is now. So we depleted the reserves. The point, and there is valid disagreement among board members as to the role of resale fees. I have a problem. Some board members say it's an easy increase, but half the time, maybe 3/4 of the time, the value of the property that's purchased in this community is less than $500,000. So if you start to raise those fees because you think there's no top, I don't think that's the way to solve the problem. What I suggested was purely short-term, and that was guided by a number of us that believe resale fees are meant to buy in to the community's foundation's assets because somebody else has paid for it. So you come into the community you don't get this for free, you have to pay a resale fee. And that pays for this. It pays for the maintenance of this. And because we used almost, in the past few years, a number of people had voted in favor of taking 45% of that asset buy-in and using it to reduce operating asset requests. So assessment requests, excuse me. So from my perspective, we were using what should have been a buy-in to maintain our assets to reduce the assessment for the owners, which I am completely against personally.
Understandably.
So, so what I said is, look, if you'll just allow the finance committee to get the option for the next couple of years to rebuild the reserves, let's take that money that comes in from resale that was historically allocated, or some number of years allocated, and let's just roll it right through to the reserve.
Look, I have no argument with any of that.
But
I guess my question is, do you personally think that the amount of money that was spent on refurbishing this building was reasonable, given where we are right now and what the plan is for rejuvenating our reserve accounts?
well, I think the people that made that decision, of which I was not a part, did a lot of study, and I think I happen to think they did a nice job. I think the price that we paid to upgrade was positive. I suspect that whatever we do over the next few years will not have made us say we shouldn't have spent it. But the fact was, we did spend it, and we knew we were spending it, and we knew that we have things coming up. The question is, where are we going? Well, I don't know where we're going, but I am reluctant to start turning back money for operations when I might need that, because down the line, in spite of the fact that nobody wants a parking garage, there might very well be, to do all this other stuff we want to do. We want to expand the fitness center. We want to do this, that, and the other thing. And we're going to have a parking issue with us until we get serious. And if we need a garage, that's a $3 or $4 million project. Now, the Iberia Bank has said to me, you want $3 million? I'll give you that money right now. But you know, who pays for it? You,
Right.
me? All right, so they don't care, they're ready to give it to us. Is that really what we want to do? We need a long-range plan. Jim has done long-range planning for a living. He's got a PhD, he's experienced, and he's saying to us, let's step back from project and let's take the steps. Now, he didn't say as much as Jerry did, but I think they're saying the same thing.
Look, that sounds like a reasonable course of action to me. One last question. The key fob, what kind of information comes off the key fob when I run it through the reader? And how is that information coordinated with the point of sale system in the fitness center as an example? So Patrick is talking about, you guys want data, and Patrick's talking about historically somebody pushed a button and said, okay, you're going to get a massage. So does the point of sale system talk to the software that keeps track of the key fob entries?
They run, they're simultaneously system running together, but they're separate. The key fob system only tracks usage of the facility. So it can tell us what member was here at what time of day and how many members were here during the day. So we can track, the number of members. It also tells us, we can program the membership fobs to tell us if that membership's expired. So when they come across and chime in, it'll come across the screen, expired or something is wrong. So we can alert the resident or member of what the issue is. But the point of sale system for purchasing programs or massages is totally different.
Okay.
Ed, I think you had a question.
Look at
We're wearing you out.
Barry? Okay.
Let
I
me
just want to respond to something Jerry said. he mentioned Quail West, and he mentioned Bonita Bay, or Pelican Bay, and he mentioned the vineyards, and he mentioned all those. Pelican Bay people and the Quail West people pay $15,000 a year to be a member there, and their dues are $100,000 a year. Figure that as a transfer fee if you want. Or their initiation fees are $100,000 a year. You got a budget of $1 million, basically, dollars that you get from the $1.1 million that you get from the residents. If you want to change the game, okay, it's a financial issue. I mean, you want to do basic long-range planning, the first decision you decide is, do you want to keep it at $550, $600, $700, or do you want to take it to $3,000 or $4,000? Which, by the way, the Vineyards is owned by a guy, and to be a social member there is $3,000. Great spot. But I think that's, I mean, Jerry, that's not the right comparison, Jerry. I mean, it's a discussion you guys need to have about whether you want to do incremental projects to keep it in the 550 or 600 or 750. But, you know, to talk about those things, you're changing the name of the game. Now, maybe you want to do that, but that's your first decision, I think you've got to make.
Right. Ed,
He didn't say that.
let me tell you, I'm the guy that put the requirement in that the board can never expend more than $250,000, okay, without community approval,
Within the same fiscal year.
okay? And the reason I did that is because sometime in the future, these kind of conversations were going to come up. The truth of the matter is, I got nothing else to do these days. I'm retired, etc. I'm down here pulling everybody's chain. Because the day that you go out and tell this community that we're going to spend $3 or $4 million or $1 million, you'll never get it passed.
We tried it with the beach.
Well, but
beach
that
properties.
basically set your strategic plan. If the board as a group decides,
Ed,
we want to take the fees triple.
Ed, it took me 3 years to get this building passed, okay? And we had the money.
Jerry, we're saying.
Okay, guys, look, enough's enough, all right? Seriously, it's 20 after 4, we're just bullshitting each other right now.
We're having that private conversation.
Strike that from the tape.
Okay, is there, pardon me?
It's on tape. You gotta
And
have
the other thing we forgot for 2 meetings in a row is we failed to ask our residents to come up and talk, and shame on us for letting that happen again. So anyhow, is there any further business to come before the board?
I want this on tape.
No,
No, wait a minute, no, I want to say something on tape. We are willing, as individuals on the board, to talk to anybody at any time for any question. And I really wish people, if they have a question or they want to sit down and go over any of this stuff, we're available. I mean, Sandy has said, Ken, look, I want you not only as a liaison to the President's Association, because you were president once, but come and talk to them about the financials. Help them to understand. And I know for a fact, living in a community, that we have a president that knows nothing about what's going on within the foundation. So I am happy to do that. But come to us. And I say this because of all the people that are going to watch this thing. I know, because it's the most interesting thing in their lives. Thank you.
Is there a motion for adjournment?
I move to adjourn.
Second, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Thank you, everybody, for joining.
Can't see the people.
Cut it to 2 hours.
Or everybody.
Take care, my friend.
Hey, Jim. I know you've done stuff so much, you just don't have to so far. I know. Yes, sir. Sir, we don't
It's a good question. I'm not naturally one of these silly.
I agree with you, I know where you're at.
Yeah, okay, we got a meeting here now. We have
It is a concern, it's a good concern.
I agree with you.
Who's gonna do it? Okay, good. All right, I missed you.